Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And I believe very deeply that it's possible for the believer in Jesus Christ to think with Christ, not just think about Christ, but to think with Christ. I hope you're well. Things here in Brazil are, well, they're never boring. And there's lots of challenges, but Jesus is very much at work here. We're busy helping to start a new church here in the city where we live. It's interesting, we started a church 40 years ago this month in this city, and now we're involved in a church plant again here in this city. The Lord has a good sense of humor. So it's good to talk to you, and I hope you're having a great day already, focused on Jesus Christ. The subject for today, October 19th, is voice or noise. Voice or noise. I'm going to make a statement. I'll see if you agree with this. My personal world is noisier than it has ever been. My personal world is noisier than it's ever been. Do you agree with that? For me, it's absolutely the truth. I have never lived in a time in my life where there were more noisy things trying to get my attention, more people trying to talk to me, convince me, guide me, people who want something from me. It's amazing how noisy things have begotten. Let me read the devotional. We'll think about this together. Is this statement true of your personal world? Have you lived long enough in this world to perceive an increase in noise? This statement is true in my world. If we define noise as anything that gets our attention and forces us to consider what it means for us, then the world is noisier than it has ever been for all of us. More attempts are made to get us to pay attention to messages and thoughts today than at any time in human history. Noise is everywhere. To survive and flourish in a world where noise is everywhere and becoming impossible to ignore, we will need to define and discipline our listening. We will need to choose what noise deserves our attention. We cannot simply listen to all the noise and stay sane. To define and discipline the noise in your world, choose which voice is the defining voice in your life. Choose carefully. Make sure this voice gets your attention at any time and in any situation. Put this voice on your list as your favorite voice. If you are a disciple of Jesus, this voice should be Jesus's voice. Next, make a list of the voices of those who genuinely have your best interest at heart and add them to your favorites list. When they call, listen to their voice. This list may not be long, but it can grow over time. When the voices of those who have your best interest are in order in your life, give them your attention. Do not make them compete with this noisy world to speak to you. Give them access to you. Be careful who you add to your favorites list and block all enemies of the way to authentic life and love. The world may be noisier than ever, but we can still define and discipline our listening by only accepting voices of those who have our best interest at heart. Let me read a passage to you from John chapter 10. It's one of my favorite passages in all of the Bible because it talks about the power of Jesus' voice and the love that Jesus has for us, where he talks about himself being the good shepherd. He says this in John 10:14, I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and I am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. As a Christian, I've always dreamed that there would be some way for the Church of Jesus Christ to be completely united, and there would be one pastor and one flock. We know that it's going to be that way in heaven for sure. We know that the bride of Christ will be all those who believe in Jesus, and And there will come a time when there is just one conversation going on between all of us as the church and Jesus. And I know that it's a lot to think about being able to think at this very moment that across the globe, every single believer that is hearing the voice of Jesus is a part of the same flock that I'm a part of. I love that thought. But the only way it could ever happen, and ever will happen, is if every single disciple of Jesus has Jesus as the voice in their life. I really believe that we make a big mistake when we do not lead Christians to believe that they can still hear the voice of Jesus. I know that a lot of people are afraid of wild theological swings in one direction or another when we start thinking about hearing the voice of Jesus. What if somebody fakes this experience? What if somebody this and that and the other? I have found this to be true in my life. When I want to have a voice talking to me about reality, and it's just talking to every Christian, obviously I'm going to read the Bible and I'm going to listen to the Bible. But there are things in my life that I need direct attention to, these things from the Good Shepherd. And I believe that Jesus will talk to me, and I believe he would talk to you about things in your personal life that he's not going to talk with anybody else about. I really believe that he's a good shepherd, and I think that he will talk to me about me. He knows my name. And so I've developed a habit of talking to Jesus as the defining voice in my life. It's a little bit like my marriage to Pam, where we have been in a dialogue now for 52 years. And her voice is the voice at the relational level that one can attain between two human beings. Our voices are one voice together now. And that has allowed us to be married for all this time that we've been married. So there needs to be this desire in the life of a believer to organize the voices. And first and foremost, there must be the voice of Jesus in your life and in my life. I hope you've already made that decision. And I hope you'll ask him questions. And I hope you'll realize he can answer you personally. And what he says to you is none of my business, and it's nobody else's business. It's between you and Jesus. And he talks to me that way, and it's one of the greatest experiences of my life. Our son Ken and our daughter-in-law Kelly, who live now for over 18 years in San Francisco, California, they have 3 adult children now. That's hard to believe. Kayla, Chase, and Hannah. And they're beautiful, wonderful Christian young adults. And I remember Kenny and Kelly telling me and telling Pam that they had created a thing with their children that they call the wisdom table. And it's one of the most beautiful ideas I've ever heard about a way for parents to help their children to have the right voices in their lives. So the wisdom table goes like this. I'm seated here in my dining area in our home in this apartment, and there are 6 chairs. And so let's say there's a seat I'm occupying, and there's a seat at the head of the table that Jesus is occupying. So there's 4 chairs still open. And so Kenny and Kelly encouraged their kids to choose people that would sit in those seats as their wisdom table. And they should choose people that have demonstrated that these people have the best interest of Kayla and Chase and Hannah and at heart. And it was very gratifying in the case of hearing from our grandkids that they would like us to occupy a place at that table. Now, it could be more than 4 people. It could be many more. But the qualifying factor is that the person would be seated at the table because they had demonstrated love and a desire for the well-being of Kayla, of Chase, and Hannah. I thought it was a beautiful idea. And I began to think about my own wisdom table. I began to think about the people that I absolutely will listen to. Obviously, I begin with Jesus, and then there's Pam. And even though husbands are famous for not listening, that's where so much of what has made my life better has come from listening to Pam. But I want to encourage you to maybe take the time to determine what voices can get your immediate attention. Be careful giving your attention to someone you do not really know. Be careful of listening to someone talk to you for hours at a time that you may enjoy the way they think, but be careful that you have at the table people who have actually demonstrated to you some level of spiritual intimacy and love, as people that you would turn to in a crisis or when you need someone to give you an honest opinion, and they really have something invested in you. I know this is harder and harder in the world. Some of the people at my table are authors that have influenced me who are no longer alive. Oswald Chambers, I think, is at my table. I would hope he would accept the invitation if I gave it to him. I've been reading his advice almost daily for over 45 years. I would love to talk to him in person someday in heaven and just let him know, wow, how much his voice meant to me during all these years. Be very careful with noise. Very careful with noise. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but the cicadas are singing. It's that time here in Brazil where they get up in the morning and they start screaming. And I don't even know how a little bug like that can make so much noise. And it is just noise, but they want somebody to pay attention to them. I think it's a part of some sort of mating ritual that goes on with these insects. But they're screaming for attention. And that's what it's like in the world right now. Be careful with the voices. Be very, very careful with the voices. If you don't have a wisdom table, maybe you should think about it. Why don't you make a little list of the people that you would invite? And you may find that if you actually invite them, they might just say yes. Sure, I'd be glad to be there for you if you ever needed an opinion or an observation or maybe some encouragement. Hey, noise or voice. I don't want to listen to the cicadas, but they're insisting. But on the other hand, if I needed some wisdom right now, I've got a list of the people that I would love to talk to at a moment of crisis. I hope you have that kind of a list. But that's food for thought for today. God bless you. Now take those thoughts to Jesus, and if he says yes, go for it. God bless you.